Hello friends, today I want to share with you 5 tips I use to save money while building my model display diorama. The first thing I did to save cost was I made my own undergrowth. I used cocoa fiber lining, the stuff that I use in my pots outside for my plants, and I went ahead and tore some pieces out of a giant lining bag and teased it out and went ahead and sprayed it down with some tacky glue, or you could use spray adhesive. And then once the fibers were sticky, I went ahead and I applied some ground foam and some flocking and then some flower type ground foam to give it a little bit of an accent. And that is a similar method to create the store-bought undergrowth, as you can see here. Another thing I did to save a little bit of money was I made trees from plants that I grow in my flower gardens. So I used sedum trees and astilbe to create pine trees and birch trees. So the sedum is the birch, the astilbe is the pine tree, and I basically painted them up with some rattle can spray paint and shook on some ground foam and some flocking and then stuck them in the ground. It's a pretty cost-effective way to get trees that are fairly realistic, especially for the background, and I get to harvest a crop once a year for free trees. The third way that I saved money was by using paintbrush bristles as reeds or bulrushes or cattails. Now, I can't take credit for this idea. My friend Ben gave this idea to me, but I went and got a bunch of cheap dollar paintbrushes from the hardware store and ripped out the bristles and then went ahead and cut and teased them into the shape that I wanted and then painted them with some Tamiya olive green. And you can see I didn't paint all of them all the way up. I left some brown ones as well as some nice dark green ones to give that contrast and to show that there's some dead rushes back here as well. This was a really cool tip to get what I feel is a fairly realistic looking reed. The fourth thing that I did to save money was I went ahead and picked some rocks out of my driveway. And these rocks are just piles of rocks that farmers would toss on the edges of their fields after the spring when they've been working the fields and picking rocks. So instead of taking the rocks very far away, they went and put them on the edges of the fields, and anything that would be 2 feet bigger than 2 foot would be a pretty big rock for a farmer to handle when they're picking stones. So I tried to keep stones under 2 feet, and I just picked them out of my driveway, sifted them out, washed them, and then stained them with acrylic brown paint and just a wash of acrylic brown paint just to give it that warm tone. And then I glued them together using white glue. And they look pretty realistic here sitting on the edge of the field. So the next cost-saving thing I tried was I used a El Cheapo model car from Bachmann to simulate an old rusted out car that was just left back in the woods. So as you can see here, this car has seen better days. It started out as a blue car, and it was that weird two-tone thing that Bachmann did to their cars. I went ahead and hit it with some dull coat, added some rust and some chipping effects, painted up the rims, and then made the tires look pretty worn. And it really turned out great. It's a nice addition to this scene and kind of ties it all together. So I'm going to share with you guys a bonus tip. So the bonus tip I want to share is the grout in the back here. This stone is actually tile grout that I picked up from the hardware store. So I got a big pre-mixed bin of almond colored grout, and it looks very close to limestone gravel that feed mills and grain elevators would use as fill to drive around on so that they wouldn't be driving in the mud. And it leaves a nice texture, and I can cover a large surface for not a lot of money. So the grout does go a very long way. So if you have a cost-saving tip that you use for your scenery, I want to hear about it. So tell me down in the comment section below this video what you've done to save money while building a diorama. Don't forget to click here to subscribe to my channel, or better yet, check out another video on my Chicago Northwestern marshline layout, or check out one of my DIY videos. Thanks for watching, and keep her and not shaved.